Hello, and I'm Don Pratt, host of a show here on Rogers TV that gives you a perspective of policing your community. Welcome to Policing York Region. Today we're on the beautiful shores of Lake Simcoe, and thank you to Creighton Marine for hosting us here as we talk to the York Regional Police Marine Unit and how they're helping keep us safe out on the water. With me is Joel. Joel, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Don.
Yeah, so Joel, I mean, we're in a little bit of an unprecedented time, and we're all saying that right now. You know, this being the end of the first week of June. We're still dealing with COVID, and obviously that has some effect on the waterways as well. What are you seeing from that?
We have been. There's a lot of people wanting to get out on their boats, which is great. They're allowed to do so. Just keep in mind that we still want to see people groups of 5 or under.
Right.
We have
so 5 or under, unless you belong to the same household as the message we've been receiving, right?
So it's the same type of fine as if you're in your at a party on the ground.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. At the same time, we have been seeing people rafting together out there in bigger groups of 5. So,
so when you say rafting together, I'm picturing people congregating on separate rafts and tying together.
Yeah, they tie their vessels off together.
Right, right. Now, this is obviously something that we want to avoid.
Yeah.
And people do need to be reminded that there are charges in place should you come across that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, you know, we've got a gorgeous day out here today, and hopefully this is indicative of what we're going to see for the rest of the summer. Well, let's talk about keeping people safe out on our waterways.
So if you're planning to go out on Lake Simcoe, or any lake for that matter, have a plan. So have an idea when you're planning on going out, when you're planning on coming out, coming back in, and where you're planning to go on the lake. And when you're doing that, tell someone that's home, or tell a friend that's home.
Right.
Just in case you run into trouble out there. Have a charged cell phone.
You know, going back to what you're saying, you know, letting people know, letting loved ones or people at home know where you're going. It only makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you do get out and you lose your bearings or you run into engine trouble, it would always be good to know, to have somebody that says, well, this is where they went.
Exactly.
It really only makes sense.
So if that would happen, we'd have somewhere to go look immediately, should you not be able to get in contact with us out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were saying some of the other, perhaps some of the safety equipment that we should have on board.
Yeah, so you should always, the general stuff is always have a buoyant line. Make sure you have a flashlight that works, that's water resistant.
Right.
Have a sound signaling device, have a bailing bucket. That's just the general guidelines.
Right.
And there's many more things you need depending on the size of your boat.
Yeah, and you know, we always refer people to yrp.ca if they need more information, or the Safe Boating Council. They can always get a far greater in-depth list of some of the things that are required on a boat, right?
Correct.
Let's talk about life jackets. We know that we have to have them on a vessel.
You need to have the life jackets for every person on board. Obviously, there's different kind of life jackets. Make sure each life jacket is the proper size for each individual on board.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the one that you're wearing right now, what do we consider that? What
this
type
is
of
a personal flotation device.
Okay.
It's an auto inflate. So for these there's two different types of these. This is an auto inflate, or there's a manual inflate.
Right.
So this, if I was to hit the water right now, this would autoly inflate.
So you don't have to do any actions. It does it all on its own.
Correct. There's a CO2 cartridge in here.
Okay.
And once it hits the water, it inflates. There's also ones that look exactly like this, except you have to manually press them. In order for these to work, though, you have to be wearing them. And we do run into this misconception out on the lake quite a bit, where people think they just need to have these in their boat. If you're counting on these as your personal flotation device, you need to be wearing them. Right. Life jackets are a different story. You just need to have them in your boat.
Oh, you don't actually have to be wearing them.
The life jacket itself, no.
The life jacket.
We recommend you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can tell you in our own household, we're not big on boating, but when we do go out boating, my wife's rule is it doesn't matter if you're coming on the boat, you're wearing the life jacket, whether it's an auto inflate or it's a life vest. It's just simply a good practice to have, isn't it?
Very good practice to have.
Right. Yeah. When we're out on the water, you know, there's some of the rules of the waterways that we need to follow. What are some of those rules?
Just following the buoy system, making sure you know which way you're going on the lake, maintaining right-of-way, knowing your right-of-ways through your through your starboard and port sides of your boat. Keep maintaining distance with anyone's always a good idea.
Right. Right. Yeah, you never need the vessels to get very close to each other. I mean, there's a large wake, there can be large waves.
Yep.
And you don't need to be disturbing other people, right?
No, no. Personal watercrafts, you have to keep in mind that you need to be 100 feet offshore.
Right.
We get a lot of calls about personal watercrafts being too close to the shore.
So that's not something I've heard before. So personal watercrafts, you're referring to like the Sea-Doo type units?
Yeah. So
You
a
need to
Sea-Doo, a
be-
Wave Runner,
And what's the distance you need to be from shore?
100 feet.
I wasn't aware of that.
No.
And is that, I suppose that's just to reduce wake and...
All the above. Like they're pretty loud, and a lot of people like to do their tricks on them, and so it's just a general rule that just to keep people onshore happy, let the operator of the watercraft enjoy their ride, and just keep everyone happy.
And it is just like many, we'll call this a water sport, but just like many other sports, there is that maintaining your distance and respecting other people's distances, respecting other people's space, right?
Correct.
Right. One of the things that we always need to talk about when we're talking out on the waterways is alcohol and consumption. And of course, these days now we have cannabis and others, but primarily with the alcohol consumption.
The rules still apply on the lake. So if you're driving impaired, you will be arrested,
Right.
and charged with impaired driving. Your boat will be impounded, and
So these really do follow the same rules as if you were on the road.
exact same rules.
Wow.
The exact same rules. And your driver's license, your
Yeah.
Ontario driver's license, will get suspended. It's not
Even though you're operating on a waterway.
correct.
Wow,
It's the
I
same
wasn't
rules.
aware of that.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty significant, and it's good that we have that in place, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's a good deterrent.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right. That's all. That's all that we can hope for. But having said that, when we have if somebody is wishing to consume alcohol on their boat, I understand there's rules around that as
Yes,
well.
you need to be anchored, and
Okay.
you need to have a kitchen space, and you also need to have a bathroom space
In order to have alcohol on
in
your
order
boat.
to have alcohol on board,
Right.
open alcohol on
Right.
board. Yeah.
But once a boat starts moving, there's no
Yeah.
alcohol. No
you
alcohol
can't
allowed to
have
be
open
open.
alcohol, no.
Right. Again, good rules to
Yeah.
to live by, right? I mean, for the most part, I mean, we've been part of Lake Simcoe for a number of years, and I think for the most part, we find that the majority of people are very respectful of the rules, and I'm sure that you'll see the same when you're out patrolling.
Oh yeah.
But there's the odd bad apple out there.
Everyone's looking to have fun. We just want to make sure someone's fun doesn't wreck someone else's fun, right? So
Right.
and keeps everyone safe.
Yeah. Like you said, you have to do everything in a safe manner. I mean, one of the funnest things about going out on a boat is anchoring somewhere out in the middle of the lake and having a dip in the water. You can do that safely. Hopefully, other people will stay away from you while you do
Yeah.
it.
Just make sure you're highly visible. Yeah.
Right. So some of the other elements of boating, we see people doing tubing and skiing. I understand there's some rules and regulations around that.
Yeah,
as
you
well.
have to make sure you always have a spotter on board,
Okay.
and particularly if you're tubing or skiing behind a personal watercraft,
Okay.
you need to have your spotter, but you also need to have a third seat on your personal watercraft for that person that's on the tube or that is skiing. So
So that's I suppose for in the event if something happens.
in case something happens to what's back there, you can
Sure.
bring that person on board, and you're safe on board.
Sure. If the towable craft is no longer usable, you still need. That actually makes sense. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
And you must see a lot of personal watercrafts on Lake Simcoe.
Particularly this year,
Is that
everyone's
right?
wanting to get out on the lake, and yeah.
Well, yeah. When we came down here with Rogers TV to do this shoot, we were talking to some of the managers down here, and they were saying that the presence on the water is significantly increased this year. There's a lot more boats than standard.
Yeah. With the COVID pandemic going on, a lot of people know they're allowed to be on the lake, and they're out there. But a lot of people don't realize they're even allowed to be out on the lake. So
Right.
you're more than welcome to be out on the lake. You just need to maintain that 5-person rule
Yes.
and just maintain the social distancing idea altogether.
Yeah, you have to. And again, that goes with everything and everywhere. That's just the rules of the road. The rules of the waterways in this case. These days, that's just simply what it is. And something worth noting. Like we're taping this on June 6th of 2020. It's only been in very recent weeks that that the boat launches in Georgina have even opened.
Yeah,
Right. So you must have seen a significant change 3 weeks ago.
we did. Yeah, there is quite a few, even through the week, because a lot of people are still off work. They're out enjoying the water, and yeah, that's great. Just make sure you stay safe and have a plan, right?
Yeah. So back to the increased number of boats. You said through the week as well. That's something that's kind of unique for your team, isn't it?
Well, this through the week and this time of year, like you'll see your boats out here, but really the last week or two, we've really seen an increase for sure.
Right. Yeah. You have to appreciate, again, with the gorgeous weather and everything that's going on this year. But Joel, we're gonna stop right there, and when we come back, I want to talk to you about that Safe Boaters checking list. Okay. Folks, we'll be right back after this.
You wouldn't be stupid enough to risk it all on a losing hand. So why risk it all out on the water? Don't gamble with your life. Wear your life jacket.
Welcome back, everyone, as we chat with the York Regional Police Marine Unit. Joel, before we went to break, I alluded to the York Regional Police Marine Vessel Checklist, I believe. Am I saying that right?
Yep, it's the York Regional Police Pleasure Craft Courtesy Check.
So this is something, the first time I seen it last year, and it came out just, we weren't quite able to get it on the air. Can you just speak to this a little bit?
So what it is it's completely up to the boater if they want this done. But what we do is it's a great reference for all sizes of boats.
Okay.
And it's basically just a checklist of all the safety equipment you're required to have on your particular vessel. But it also gives you all the other sizes too. Should a friend ask you a question or whatever, right?
Right.
So what it is we meet you out on the lake or we meet you at the dock. We go over the checklist. We get a bit of information from you, and then if you pass, we'll give you a copy of the checklist.
Okay.
And we'll also give you a sticker
Okay.
that you can keep with you on your vessel, or you can stick on your vessel.
Right.
It's
Okay.
completely up to you what you want to do with it.
Okay.
Now, if you don't pass, we'll still give you a copy of it. Circle
Right.
what you need,
Yes.
and we'll meet you back out there probably another day.
Oh,
Go
nice.
over it again.
Okay. I love that follow-up piece. That's great.
Well, we always
Sure.
run into the same people,
Sure.
right? So,
Sure.
but if we run into you again and you did pass, you can show us your sticker.
Yeah.
And it just saves a lot of time and hassle for the boater to
Absolutely.
get all their stuff out.
Yes.
We'll still come and have a chat with you.
But you recognize as somebody that's already been
Yeah.
compliant, right?
We just don't want to, something that could take 10 minutes, it might take 2 minutes or maybe
Sure.
even a minute now.
Sure.
We will run into the same people maybe 5 or 6 times easily
Yeah.
in a summer. Those are the people that are out there every day fishing, right? So
You would have, as I've heard the term, you would have a lot of repeat clientele.
yes, yeah.
Right? No, I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, just the idea of, well, a couple of things. You're already doing a vessel check anyways. So to have somebody leave with a hard copy of where they were and weren't compliant and giving them that opportunity of correcting themselves.
Yeah.
And of course getting that insignia that says, yes, this vessel is compliant.
Exactly.
It's a fantastic idea. right?
And it's just a great reference because say you run into your pal
Yeah.
when you get in and they're like, oh, that's funny, I don't have this, and they're looking at the sheet as well, and then
Right.
they, you know.
And it's also an education piece, right? I mean, I've had my my boater's license for a number of years, but I can tell you that virtually every time that I have a conversation with yourself or one of your colleagues, I do learn something new, or I'm reminded of something that perhaps I maybe knew 20 years ago.
Yeah, and for this it helps us as well because there's so many different sizes of boat vessels, right? So
And that's something we should actually touch on. I mean, earlier we had talked about, you know, some of the we'll call it the very basics that are needed on any vessel. But as, I guess you would say, as the boat grows in length, there are more requirements.
Yeah, so just for example, types of flares you need.
As you get into the bigger vessels.
Yeah, different type of fire extinguishers if you have
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah.
Different type of pressures on your fire
Sure.
extinguisher if you have if you're
Sure.
cooking on your vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's. Would you like me to touch on?
Yeah,
a few?
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so like some of the bigger boats, you might need a radar reflector, magnetic
Right.
compass, different types of nav lights,
Yes.
different types of bilge systems or manual bilge pumps.
Right. Something to drain the unwanted water from your vessel.
Yeah. Fire extinguishers, the bigger boats, they need a 10 BC level
Oh, right.
instead of a 5.
Yes.
And the types of flares. Now, I should say on our pleasure craft courtesy check, on the back there's notes on, so there's always a C note
Right,
on each
right.
thing, and on the
Okay.
back you can refer to different type of circumstance
Okay.
for your
Okay.
particular vessel. So.
Yeah, and as we said, like there are different categories, and that kind of brings me to a conversation that I had with one of your colleagues a couple of years ago, where we were actually out on the vessel with you, and they were doing a courtesy stop, and it was a canoe, and being a canoe, they didn't feel that they needed any of the safety equipment at all.
No, you still need the sound signaling device, the buoyant line, the bailer, definitely life jackets.
Yeah.
Like, keep in mind when we're out there, the first thing we're looking for and making sure people have is life jackets. And I want to touch on life jackets as far as people stashing them away in their boat.
Yes.
And they've been in there 5 or 6 years. They get musty, they get broken down, and they might not be as functional as you think they are. So should you get into a predicament out there where you need one, it's always good to check them, air them out, make sure they work, and update them when it's pretty obvious they need to be updated.
Yeah, the wrong time to find out that it's not going to work is when you need it, right? And my understanding is life jackets do have an expiry to them, but more so than that is just the visual.
Yeah, just do a visual inspection, any rips, tears. Yeah, like I said, it's pretty obvious when one needs to be replaced. And at the end of the year, air your stuff out. Don't just leave it packed in the same spot. But and people also need to keep in mind, when their life jackets are stowed away, keep them in a place where you can get at them quick should you need to. Some people, it takes them 5 minutes to get at their life jackets to get out.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things, and it's a testament to my wife on her rule to it, that I don't care who you are, if you're coming on our vessel, you're wearing a life jacket. Having it stowed under the bow, underneath all the coolers, doesn't do you any good in an emergent situation, does it?
No, not at all. Have it in a place where you can get at it very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you had touched on flares, different types of flares that are required for different vessels. Those two, they have an expiry?
Yes, 4-year expiry. And some say right on them manufacturer date and expiry date, and some will just say the manufacturer date. So those ones that say just the manufacturing date, it's 4 years from that date.
Okay, and they have to be replaced.
They need to be replaced. Yeah.
They're no longer considered in service if they're past their expiry date.
No,
right?
and it's actually, you shouldn't have an expired flare on your vessel. Just so every year, every spring before you get your boat out, go over your boat in your driveway or at your marina. Make sure you have everything. People are excited to get out there, and we understand that. And you can't count how many times you hear people say, "We're just excited to get out. We know we have everything. But you knew you had everything last year. But do you have everything this year? Is everything operable this year?"
That's right. And there's something to be said for not unlike anything else. It is a mechanical device. You can't say enough about make sure everything's in good repair on your vessel.
Yep, and fuel gauges too we've seen in the past where people think they have a full tank and they don't. Just make sure you just go over everything.
Yes. And properly gauge your timing too. Like you hit on a good point with the fuel. I know many times we've been with your outfit where that's what we hear is a call for service because somebody's ran out of fuel. We have to do a better job on gauging how much fuel is going to take us how far.
The general idea would be a third to get where you're going,
Yes.
a third to come back, and a third reserve. And
A
that
third
reserve,
just in case.
a third because you never know what happens out there.
I love
Especially
that.
if the weather turns, you just don't know.
Absolutely. We're talking about Lake Simcoe. I've heard years ago when I first moved up here, 30 odd years ago, that Lake Simcoe in like a lamb, out like a lion. It's so true.
It can be beautiful like this one minute out there,
Yes.
and the next minute could have 5-foot swells out there. So just always
Yeah.
keep in mind, look at the forecast before you're going out.
Yes.
Have an idea, but don't base your day on the forecast.
No.
Keep looking at the sky. Make sure you have a good idea what's happening out there.
No, and follow it. Keep, as you said, like keep track of that. You know, and the third, keeping a third tank fuel to get back just in case. It's always a great idea, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, but when you talk about weather, I know that we've been out with your team very much on a day like this, and by the time we got back was only a short time later, maybe 40 minutes later, and we were navigating through 5 and 6 foot waves.
Yeah.
Now, a vessel like yours, you're probably okay, but in some of these 18, 21 foots,
It can get dangerous. We actually had a lady here the other day trying to get back down the Holland River,
right?
and she was very smart. She had her 3 kids with her,
Yeah.
and she wasn't sure if she could get back to the Holland, and she was coming past crates. So
Yeah.
instead of trying to beat the storm, she came in here into shelter,
Good for her.
waited the storm out, and then went back out.
Good for her, and that's what you should do. You should always be cognitive of, you know, is it a safe idea for me to move forward, right? Sometimes you are better just to bunker down, again in a covered slip,
Yeah.
in a safe haven, right?
Just anywhere on shore.
Yeah, especially where there's kids involved,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Now, is there any you know, talking about kids, is there any mandatory rules specific to kids, or is it all pretty much in general for all people on vessels?
You know what? My general rule is your kid should be wearing their life jacket.
Yes.
And I think all parents would agree with that.
Yes.
So, we never see a kid out there without a life jacket. And if they do, that's going to be a big issue for us.
It
So,
is, yeah. Okay. So one of your biggest, one of your primary roles is, of course, patrolling the lake. If I'm a boater out on Lake Simcoe, what can I expect when I'm being pulled over by York Regional Police?
We'll stop and have a chat. We'll make sure you have all your safety equipment on board. We'll make sure you have your license paper if you have over a 9.9 horsepower.
So over a 9.9.
Over a 9.9 horsepower, you need a license paper and bow numbers on both sides of your bow.
I see.
It
Okay.
needs to be licensed through Transport Canada.
Right.
It's a single piece of paper. It'll have your name. You can do this all online. You
Okay.
register it. You give them the length, the kind,
Right.
color.
So so this is similar to an ownership of a vehicle.
It's not it's not a deed.
Okay.
It's just
It's a registration.
It's a registration those bow numbers on that boat
Yeah.
belong to this license paper.
I see.
You also require your pleasure craft operator's card if you are operating the vessel,
Right.
and that's anything with any engine at all on it.
Any engine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So they keep the rules pretty tight on that.
yeah.
Right.
Canoes and kayaks, obviously they're exempt, but unless the canoe has a motor on it.
Right.
So
Right. So what do you know, I've been pulled over, I've provided you with my registration, and I've provided you with my vessel operator's card. What kind of questions can I expect from York Regional
we'll
Police and Marine?
just show us all your safety equipment. How's the fishing going? How's the boating going?
Yeah.
Well, we got some trinkets for kids. If
Yes.
we got some whistles to
Yes.
to make the parents' day even more enjoyable through.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, one thing to note about, you know, this role in particular, I mean, obviously there's an enforcement piece, and we would never take away from that. But a lot of it is just straight education too, isn't it?
Yep, we're exactly what you said. We're probably more education than we are enforcement.
Right.
We're not out there to wreck people's day, but
Yeah.
people need to realize that if it's a safety issue and where we've seen something in the past where
Sure.
sometimes you need to be reminded
Yeah.
with
Yeah, of course.
certain ways of doing things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, and sometimes, and we all know this, it's no different than speeding on your road. Sometimes enforcement is really the only way that somebody's going to get the message. And you know, that's unfortunate, but that is the way of it.
Yeah.
But speaking to the education piece, I mean, I've seen where your officers have actually gone out to community groups and the like to do presentations as well.
Yeah, yeah. In the past, we went to schools, talked about water safety.
And we're going to look forward to seeing much more of that. Joel, thanks so much for being here on the show. Folks, that wraps up this episode of Policing York Region. Been great having you. Look forward to seeing you again.